welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors PrecisionHydration.com, who offer electrolyte drinks in different strengths to match how you sweat. You can personalize your hydration strategy today at PrecisionHydration.com, and you can get a free box or tube of pH worth up to $9.99 using the code OxygenAddict. And we're also brought to you by Thriver.co. Take health tracking to a new level with your personalized at-home finger prick blood test. You can get £30 off your first test with the code OxygenAddict30. More about our sponsors later. Right, everyone, thanks very much for joining us. We have got a super interview for you this week. I've managed to catch up with Lucy Charles-Barclay, fresh from her second place in Kona. Got a great interview hearing all about that race, all about her year leading up to that race. Interestingly, all about the training that got her into the shape where she was able to do that race and make that epic comeback in her battle with Sarah Crowley out on the Queen Kate. So she's done a brilliant job of telling the story of that. She's always a great interview. She's always a super hard worker, but we really get into the depths of some of the frankly hellish sounding sessions that her coach and husband Reece has put her through in the lead up to this for Kona this year. And some really great insights into her mindset and how she really stays strong and trains herself to be able to race when it matters the most. But first, before we get to that, we've got some news and excitement of the week just gone. So first up, you'll have seen this. Ironman Western Australia took place this past weekend. Always renowned for being a fast course, but on a week where the conditions were not fast, it was hot and it was humid, there were two incredible standout performances. First up, on the women's side, we had a win for Teresa Adams. She broke the course record and she went 8 hours 38:43. Now, I think that is an astonishing performance, given that she actually closed the run out. When you think Chrissy went sort of down at 8:18 and closed that down with a low 240s run, Teresa Adams' run in the sort of the low 3 hours there, her swim and her bike were absolutely on a par with the best performances I think we've ever seen in the sport. So an amazing performance from her. She took the win ahead of Sarah Piampiano, who was there in 8:42. And Groot Zafradas from Spain in 8:49 closed that out. And a shout out to Brit Katrina Matthews, who a lot of you will know as Cat Rye. She went 8:53 on debut at Ironman, which is pretty astonishing. And a lot of people have been saying behind the scenes, this is where her future lies, at the long distance racing. And she's really proved that against an incredibly stacked field on a very, very fast day. To go sub 9 on your first Ironman is an outstanding performance. So well done, Kat. Over on the men's side, it was a win for Ali Brownlee. He took that out in 7:45. He rode 4:10 and he then ran in a 2:44 to take that out overall. The interesting fact for me here was that watching him run through the halfway point, he was through in about 1:17 at the halfway point. And it looked like he was just on cruising power for the second half of that. And in my estimation, could probably have run 2:36, 2:37 if he'd been pushed, to maybe even faster if he'd absolutely gone for it. He looked relatively fresh at the finish line, and especially considering he's not known to go particularly well in the heat and humidity, or at least that's conventional wisdom. He certainly proved that wrong. If he can go 7:45 on a course like that with no one around him, it just boggles my mind as to what's going to happen the next time he races in Kona with competition around him. And interestingly, if you think back to our interview with Cam Worth last week, he was sort of saying there, you have to go 7:45 to win. And he reeled off a list of races since his race at Italy where he went 7:45. Every major Ironman has been won in around the 7:45 mark. And again, with those runs down under the 2:45 mark, down into the low 2:40s. So his almost prophecy of races are going to be won in 7:45 from now on holds true. If you look at the second place, Matt Burton, 7:55, he was very close to the old course record of Terenzo's. And in third place, Tim van Berkel in 8 hours flat and 27 seconds. The kind of times that would have been astonishingly quick and would have easily won races just a year ago, people are being pushed to those levels even just to reach the podium. So very interesting to watch. So watch that with interest, because I think we've seen a seismic shift happen since Kona this year, and we're going to see those times continue to be faster and faster and faster. All right, now, before we go into our interview of the week with Lucy Charles-Barclay, a shout out to our sponsors, Precision Hydration. You need to keep yourself properly hydrated, and you need to keep cramp away when you're stuck in your indoor training blocks. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, we are deeply into the winter at the moment. It's cold, it's icy, and it's often not safe to ride outside, even on days like today where, as I'm recording this, it's a beautiful sunny day outside. And the temptation is always for me to go and ride when it's like this, when it's 2 or 3 degrees and sunny. But I know from having watched lots of crashes happen and having been out and had loads of dodgy episodes myself on the ice, you've only got to come around a corner and it's an icy frozen section in amongst the hedges and you're down and God knows what can happen. So make sure you keep yourself safe by training indoors. And if you are training indoors on the days when it's not safe to be outdoors, you need to keep on top of your hydration and keep the cramp away. And precision hydration is the perfect situation to be using with this. Okay, so precision hydration make electrolytes in different strengths to match how you sweat. So anything from 250 milligrams all the way through to 1500 milligrams of sodium per bottle. What that means is you can take their online sweat test, get a really good lead as to whether you are a particularly salty or particularly heavy sweater, and you can mix in the appropriate amount of sodium for you, how heavy you sweat, and or how salty your sweat is. Now, I've been to visit these guys in person and had one of their in-person sweat tests done using the little machine they do for this, and know that for every bottle I lose, I'm losing very close to that 1500 milligrams of sodium. So I've absolutely got to take care of it. Last proper turbo session I did, both my calves locked up completely at the end of it. So it's super important for me. I know from a lot of the athletes I've talked to, they feel as though they're more confident in their body when they're taking that precision hydration and keeping their electrolytes topped up. So if you've never tried it before, risk-free trial, a free box or tube worth up to $9.99 using the code OxygenAddict. And if not, just get over there and get yourself ordered, and it will get you through the winter and take care of that sweat loss on the treadmill or the indoor trainer. All right, here we go then, over to this week's interview of the week with the one and only Lucy Charles-Barclay.
Hey Rob, yeah, it's really good to be back on. It seems like absolutely ages to have a good catch up with you.
Yeah, it's been, I was looking back, it was December of 17, the last time we managed to get you on. So there's a lot to chat about since then.
Yeah, a lot has happened. It's been a crazy journey even since then. So, and time has absolutely flown. I can't actually believe it's been that long. So, it's been good.
Sure, it must have gone crazy for you. Well, listen, let's set the scene a little bit. The first time you came across our radar, I was down at Ironman UK. I was in the press tent, and there were all these very serious-looking mid-40s men coming across the line, collapsing and rolling around in agony. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you bounced through with your hair tied back in bunches and with a big smile on your face, and everyone's like, "Who's that? And how does she look so fresh still?" And then you fast forward sort of 4 or 5 years, and here you are with 3 obviously second places at the Ironman World Championships, multiple wins at Ironman, God knows what else going on. So you showed the promise from the very early age. What I want to get today is the idea of the story of what's happened over these last couple of years for you, and how life is different from, we followed you from just trying out Ironman to getting very good and turning pro very quickly to now, obviously, you're one of the, if not the most established names in the sport. And it does all happen in a very quick space of time.
Yeah, I mean, back in sort of 2014, 2015, I was doing my first Ironmans, like you said, Ironman UK in Bolton, and just going, initially to go and just finish and say I've done an Ironman, and then getting hooked on it, coming back and wanting to win my age group and qualify for Kona, and then going on to win my age group at Kona. It's been a whirlwind of a journey, and I definitely, it looks like it's kind of been an easy journey, I guess, from the outside. A lot of people just think it's kind of happened, but I can promise you it's been a lot of hard work, and I definitely have had a boost from my swim fitness, growing up being a good level swimmer, and then taking that into Ironman's definitely helped. But yeah, there's definitely been struggles along the way. There's been injuries to deal with, and kind of increasing pressure as the level of your competition gets higher, and obviously you've got sponsors to please, and always the biggest pressure definitely still comes from myself, because I've always been a born competitor and I just want to win races because I enjoy winning. So I still think the biggest pressure always comes from myself, and the kind of pressure and ambition I have to do well is always in there. But ultimately, even since the beginning, my key thing coming into triathlon was to have fun, because swimming had kind of got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore, and going training was a real chore, and the early mornings took their toll. And even when I was still competing well as a swimmer, I just wasn't getting that buzz anymore. So that was really why I did come into triathlon, because I just wanted to have that love of sport again. And I stand by that now, even competing at the highest level. I'm really trying to keep it fun. Even when I'm training day in, day out, we always have an element of fun in our sessions, just to keep it exciting and to keep us going, because ultimately I think that's what will lead to a long and successful career in the sport. So all going well so far, definitely.
Well, one of the things that really came across, right at that very first race in the UK was how much it looked like you were enjoying doing it. And, you were kind of dancing around in the area at the finish line. And it was obvious. I mean, you said to us at the time, this is just the best sport ever. I'm having so much enjoyment doing it. It looks like that has somehow managed to carry on all the way through your 5 years so far your 4 years of your pro career so far. And that passion for the different kinds of training that you're doing really comes across in, all the YouTube videos that you make and your Instagram and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like I said, we are just trying to enjoy what we're doing. And I kind of stand by, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then what's the point in doing it? And I absolutely love my job. I feel like I definitely have the best job there is. And yeah, of course, there's times where it's really hard and you're really tired and the alarm goes off at 4:45 in the morning to go swim training, and it's tough. But actually, if you have got that real love of the sport, then you can continue to do it. And yeah, we are just trying to have as much fun as possible whilst trying to compete at the highest level.
Now, you say we a lot, and I really like this. Obviously, you're coached by your husband, Reece, who was your fiance when we met you originally. One thing I've been wondering is, again, you said before, it looks like a kind of ideal situation from the outside, but I'm sure that competing at the very highest level and being coached to compete at the highest level, Reece must have to make you do some sessions that are really very unpleasant. So is there other times when it's tough? Is it different? Is it difficult to have to wear sort of different hats between the relationship and the coach-athlete relationship?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting dynamic, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of couples that think, how the hell do you guys do that? I mean, we met as swimmers, but we were always in quite a high pressure sporting environment. And I think even from quite early on, Reece was someone that I looked up to as kind of a mentor for me, to like advise me on what I should do and maybe how I should approach different races. So he's always kind of had that slight coaching role for me anyway. And then we went on to set up our own business. So we were business partners as well and doing personal training together. And then we decided to jump onto this triathlon journey together. So whatever we've been doing it together. And most of the time we literally are tied at the hip. I think we've been together nearly 9 years now. And probably in the space of that time, we've spent less than probably 2 months apart across that time. So we do spend a hell of a lot of time together. And yeah, of course, there's times when we're debating what sessions we should do. And I mean, a prime example was probably about 4 weeks out from Kona, Reece had set me this absolutely disgusting run session, to which Reece, I think he had done his final race of the year. So he was kind of on a little bit of a break, but he was trying to stay at his fitness level so he could do these last few sessions with me to really help me along and give me that extra boost. And it was a really long run session that I had to do. And I felt like Reece was running quite well. And then we had these 2 blocks of about 8K that were the main part of the long run where I had to hit quite a fast pace. And so we set off on the first one and Reece shot off, and I just had a bit of a strop really. I was like, I can't keep up with that. This is ridiculous. So to which Reece stopped and was like, are you going to do this session or not? And I was like, no, I think it's too hard. So he was like, well, just go home then if you're not going to do it. And well, that kind of fired me up a little bit, I guess. I got a bit annoyed, to which I went on to just absolutely smash this session, and Reece couldn't keep up with me. So he was just like, see, I told you could do it. And often that happens quite a lot, where I think he set me sessions that maybe are a little bit too ambitious, but actually he knows I can do it. I've just got to find that place and go to it to be able to do the session. So yeah, it definitely is an interesting dynamic, and he really does get me doing some sessions that I don't think I'm capable of, and then somehow he manages to make me do it. So it's definitely working. I mean, the results kind of speak for themselves to say that what we're doing together is working. But yeah, there's times where it is really, really hard. Most of the time we work really well together and we kind of bounce off each other. But there's definitely days where maybe one of us or even both of us are so tired that we can get a bit grumpy, but I think that's only normal. So yeah.
Do you think he does that deliberately sometimes, kind of to get you fired up?
Yeah, I often feel like one of the key things that works in our program is that I never get comfortable. So I never really get to repeat the session at the same intensity I did before. We're always stepping it up a little bit, which gets quite annoying as an athlete, because you're like, oh, but I feel like it should be easy this week, but it never is, because we're always pushing on that little bit more, and he's very good at doing that. But I never get to enjoy the luxury of thinking, oh yeah, this is easy, and it's easier than last week, because we're always trying to push it on a bit. So but it works.
And do you think that has a knock on onto race day, when you've done so many sessions where you've started out not feeling that you're capable of doing them? Does that have an effect on your race day when you've got all those in the bag?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the key things people say is that how do you pull yourself out of dark spots in a race, and how do you keep your head strong in a race that long? And a lot of the time it is recalling on those sessions where, when I started out the session, I didn't think I could do it, or I knew it was going to be really tough, and I've managed to do it. And that's often the kind of session that I'll look back on in a race. And normally leading into a race, I'll probably write down like my key 5 sessions that were really tough and I managed to do, and reflect on those during the race when I'm in one of those dark points. And it kind of reminds me that I can do it. And there's also sessions where it might be quite extreme, and it's actually less about the physical toll, but more about mentally the toll that it has, and giving yourself the confidence that you know what, you can do this. It's maybe a little bit unnecessary, but it's going to give you that mental edge in the race. So it's a lot about physical training, but it's also a lot about the mental training as well.
Now, let me ask you about your year of racing this year then. You've had a pretty stellar year, I think, by anybody's standards, haven't you? You had the win at South Africa, you had the win at Roth, and then you had the sort of the 70.3, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and then Kona. So first up, I wanted to ask you, sort of with the race that you've had at South Africa and Roth, where you're out on your own, and usually your races you're out on your own right from the gun, aren't you? Right from the swim. Do you have to be quite sort of self-driven all the way through these races without anyone sort of around you to race for most of the year?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're definitely within your own head. And I think coming from a swimming background, being a distance swimmer, a lot of the time, a lot of training and racing was just in my own head. So I think that's definitely helped, having that ability to just be out front racing on your own, and you're not always aware of what the gaps are behind you. So you're just trying to keep pushing, because you just don't know really if you're growing the gap or if it's closing. So I'm always trying to judge that effort myself. I quite like it in a way. I do like being out front in the driving seat and applying the pressure. I've had like a few different races this year, like even actually South Africa at the beginning of the year, because we had a shortened swim. I just didn't get that normal lead I'd have on the swim. And where I'd had actually a really big break over the winter, my biking just wasn't where it could be. So I actually ended up getting caught on the bike. But that was actually quite nice in a way, because I had a bit of company. So there was a lot more going on, and the bike leg actually went a bit quicker because I had other girls to like kind of see where they were and try and get back in front. And then it made it more exciting. And then went on to have probably one of my best runs, which kind of showed that the winter I'd focused more on my run than anything else. So that was really good. And then the Challenge Championship actually in Slovakia was one of my favourite races this year, because I managed to win it for the 3rd time. And every time I've done that race, I've won it slightly differently. But this year was kind of my more typical style of racing, just out from the front and trying to hold off the gap. So that's definitely how I like to race. But I don't mind when things change, because it gives me something else to kind of learn. Every race I do, I definitely learn something new, and I feel like I'm still learning, which is really good. But yeah, I feel like I've probably had my best season this year, and it was kind of almost a bit of disappointment not to win Kona, but then I would still say that was probably one of my best ever performances. So I can't be disappointed. It has been a really good year.
Well, let's talk about Kona a little bit then, because, I mean, what an epic battle you had at the end of that race. It was one of the only years where I've stayed up and just been gripped by it right to the very, very finish. For people who haven't seen it, let's talk them through the race. So you led out the swim. I want to say as per usual, but that's not to kind of like gloss over the fact that you've obliterated everybody on the swim. Out onto the bike again, you rode really, really strongly again, didn't you? Yeah,
I think it was definitely my best bike performance today. I kind of, my whole game plan was based on how Daniela Ryf has caught me the 2 years previously. So I knew I wanted to back in that ride, and literally the last hour just went super hard, but felt really, really good. But unfortunately, that just took its toll on my run. From the kind of sessions I'd been doing in my training, the time that I thought I could run, I just was way off of that. So the good thing is, I feel like I still have not anywhere near shown my run potential, which is nice. But yeah, I led that race for 7.5 hours, and then eventually got passed in the energy lab by Annie Haug. And the thing was, I was getting splits, and I was just hearing how much the gap was coming down, and she was just tearing up that run course. And I think, obviously, if I'd had the run I could have had, I reckon it would have been me and Annie Haug basically sprinting in the last kilometres together, trying to get that win, which would have been really exciting. But I ended up having a battle with Sarah Crowley. I think I probably had maybe 5 or 6k to go, and Sarah Crowley passed me. And there is this amazing picture from Steph Hansen from Witsup where my face just says it all. It's just like, oh God, no, like this is not what I wanted to happen, dropping back into 3rd place. And kind of in that moment, I knew I was obviously suffering, but everyone is suffering at that point. So I was like, let's just keep Sarah in your sights. Let's not let her get too far away, because we'll see what happens. And then I reckon I probably had less than 3 kilometres to go, and Reece was actually out on the Queen K, and he was like, Lucy, she's suffering, like, come on, you've got to dig deep now, let's see what you can do. And I kind of was the gap, I was closing it back down, and I could see that Sarah was struggling in front, and we kind of hit, with less than maybe 2 kilometres to go, you hit a slight rise on the Queen K before you drop down Polani. So it was actually on that rise that I made my move and just went all in, basically. Didn't look back, because I just didn't dare look back, basically. And for those who don't know, actually, basically, as soon as I hit T2 in Kona, I started to get cramp in my legs. So my calves cramped, putting my trainers on. And then running out of the transition up Polani, my quads started to cramp. So It pretty much was a marathon of dealing with cramp in my legs and trying to manage my nutrition to stop that escalating. But by the last 10k, it was like everything was just cramping and going. So my biggest nightmare when I overtook Sarah was that when we were running back down Polani, my quads were just going to go, because I'm sure downhill is way worse, or it just feels like it's way worse. So, yeah, I just had to ignore everything in my body and just go all in to finish. And it was quite funny, because Reece was obviously out on the Queen K with less than 3 kilometres to go. So he didn't really know what was going on. He'd seen me in 3rd, and then he was basically sprinting back to try and get back to the finish before me. So he didn't really know what was going on. And then when I finished in 2nd, he just couldn't believe it. He was like, I can't actually believe you managed to pull that back. So, yeah, that was really good. But honestly, I finished that race and I barely even knew where I was. I remember doing an interview with Mike Riley on the finish line, and I could hear that my words were slurring, like I just had no control over what I was saying. So God knows what I said. I haven't actually watched that back. I could have said anything. And then did obviously the podium, the champagne, and then I was just straight in the medical tent. And after a few hours in there, I was fine. But I had definitely laid everything on the line, which for me was, I've had actually a lot of comments from people going, well, how can you be happy with second? If you're happy with second, then you're never going to win the race. And it's like, yes, but I know on that day I couldn't have given any more. So what more could I do? Like I'm over the moon with what I did and the performance I laid down. And obviously the result I wanted was to get the win. But when you've done everything you can, you just cannot be disappointed. So it was a great day. It was a great race, and it was a good way to sort of finish off a good year, really.
I can't believe anybody would say that to you after watching you battle your way back. I watched the video again in preparation for the interview, and actually, because I'm such a geek, I wrote down the timing. Sarah passed you with 8 hours 14 on the clock, and you passed her back with 8 hours 35 on the clock. So you were 10 minutes from the finish line when you passed her back. So how far ahead did she get in that 20-minute section? Did you manage to hold her to a relatively close enough to see, or can you not really remember?
There was never a point where I couldn't see her. I could always see her. I mean, obviously it's a straight road, the Queen Cave, so it's hard to judge. And I always remember seeing her get to the aid station, and then she'd probably just left the aid station before I got there. So it probably never got to more than sort of 400, 500 meters. I just tried to control that gap as best I could.
And can you remember what you were thinking as you realised that you were closing the gap on her?
I mean, I just thought, I don't want to drop off of this podium, really. And I didn't want to drop back a position. Having come second the last 2 years, my ultimate goal was to go up a position, definitely not go back one. So I was like, you've got to fight for this, because I mean, maybe most people would be happy just to get on the podium, but if you've been on the podium twice in second, it's kind of, you don't want to go back one. So I was really just fighting to hold that second place and digging deep, ignoring every kind of pain in my body and just trying to hang on.
What do you plan to do differently in future with the whole? I mean, hydration it's such a challenging part, isn't it, when you're out in Kona and it's so hot and humid all the time. And I know in the past you've trained in heat and humidity inside those heat chambers and stuff. Have you got a plan going forward to try and address those cramps?
I think the biggest thing this year was, and I would say it is nigh on impossible to match your sweat rate with the intensity that we're trying to race in those conditions, sort of as the top level athletes. But the thing that I kind of didn't really do was I hadn't really, although my strategy on the bike was to go quite hard and then really push the back end, I probably hadn't really practiced it enough in training, that kind of style of racing. So I'd done sort of hard efforts throughout, but I'd never done, say, a last hard hour on the bike. So maybe that's something I need to address. I mean, this year we focused more than ever on my nutrition strategy. We basically did 6 hours on the indoor trainer in the heat, measuring my sweat rate every hour to make sure I was matching it. So we was really on board with that, and probably quite lucky we was, because of the cramp that did happen. I think if I hadn't have focused so much on the nutrition, then I could have completely fell apart. So we definitely did focus on that. We will continue to focus on that. I think we may even start our heat prep a lot earlier. We did do a good amount of heat prep like we do every year, but maybe we would start introducing that even earlier, just to get that stimulus in super early and get the adaptions going. The nutrition, I would say I almost did nail it, but actually when I got back and I was in the medical tent, they said I had lost nearly 2 kilos in body weight. So I was dehydrated.
Wow.
But it's just so difficult to match it in Kona. I mean, we're lucky as pros. We actually have the pro aid stations on the run, and that makes such a big difference, because you can plan your run nutrition to a T as well. And I think we have something like 6 or even more aid stations as pro athletes, where we've got our own drinks. So we're really making sure we know what we're getting. And as long as you drink all of that, which I pretty much did drink nearly all of that as well. So it's it's difficult
like,
to
what
know
more
how
can
much
you do,
more.
isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, this year I've had quite a few races where I've had really bad stomach issues as well. So I'm always that little bit nervous of kind of pushing it that little bit more and trying to take on board more and more. So Kona, luckily I had none of that, and I feel like we did get it right because I didn't have any of those kind of issues. But yeah, it's always, like I said, we are always learning, which is a great thing with this sport. I think with the free disciplines and racing that long, you do just continue to learn. So yeah, we will have another good look, and it's nice. We've got quite a while until Kona, so we've got plenty of time to address these things and really look at trying to finally get that win next year. I think that is obviously the goal. So yeah, it's exciting.
Now, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, and you've just alluded to that there with the 6-hour indoor rides. I'm sitting down watching the Tour de France this year, as I'm sure many of our listeners were. Every single advert pops up. Guess who's advertising Zwift on the TV? There you are on national TV all the time. How did that come about? And were you surprised that you ended up, like, I mean, you were literally everywhere, all over the coverage, weren't you?
That was amazing. Yeah, it was so cool. I think it probably was after I raced in Samarin. I think we did the filming for that in this little studio in London, and it was really cool. They basically said, "Oh, Jan Frodeno's just on set. You're going to go on next." So I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And I did some like biking on Zwift and some running on Zwift for this shoot. And I just remember being on the bike and they were like, right, we need you to really push it now, like show your pain face, make it look like you're really working really hard. And I look out into the crowd of people that are there, and Mo Farah's just there watching me on the bike. And I'm just like, oh my God, like this is crazy. But unfortunately, I didn't actually get to meet Mo because he'd gone into hair and makeup when I was leaving set. So I'm sure he didn't have to spend as long in hair and makeup as I did, but yeah, that was really cool. And I wasn't completely sure where the ad was going to go. They said it might be during the Tour de France. So yeah, that was just really weird because we obviously love Tour de France as well. So we had it on the telly, and every now and again I'd be like, oh, there's me popping up again. So yeah, that was really, really cool. Yeah, and it's always great the opportunities that come about from the different sponsors I have. So yeah, that was brilliant.
And then you've just had this video out with Red Bull with them. I've only managed to see a little bit of it, but being taken to their headquarters and getting flown around and stuff. What was that all about?
Yeah, so yeah, basically Red Bull is based in Austria. So as a Red Bull athlete, you get to go out and visit their headquarters. And they also have this really elite training facility for all the Red Bull athletes. So I hadn't actually yet been out there, and I've been a Red Bull athlete for about 3 years now. So they were like, we really want to get you out there and show you all of this. So we sort of said, well, the best time to go really is during my off season to suss it out. So we went out there. My sister actually now works for me doing all of my media stuff, and we're really trying to push YouTube at the moment. So we kind of asked, oh, do you think we'd be allowed to film around the headquarters and give people a bit of an insight into that? And Red Bull were all for it. So yeah, it was an amazing trip. They even gave us a helicopter tour so we could see the headquarters from above and just see the lakes in Austria, all the mountains. We were so lucky as well because it was just such an amazing day. So it was so clear we could see it all. But yeah, that was really, really amazing of Red Bull to do that. And yeah, like I said, some of the opportunities that I get to do just by being a triathlete and having these amazing sponsors is like, I couldn't have imagined it when I started out. So yeah, it is really amazing.
And the last time we talked, I think you didn't even have a bike sponsor. Maybe it was the time before, but do you remember you were without a bike sponsor, and now obviously you're on the swanky new Specialized.
Yeah, I reckon when we last spoke, I was probably still on, I can't remember what frame I had. It might have been a Boardman frame, but I'd actually stuck stickers over it. So it said like lucycharles.com. So
that's right,
people
yeah.
knew that I didn't have a deal. And I think it probably wasn't long after we spoke because I signed with Specialized after I won Ironman Lanzarote, or after I won the Challenge Championship in 2017. So my first race on the Specialized was when I did Frankfurt to qualify for Kona as a pro the first time. So yeah, it's been like an amazing journey, and kind of from looking back, and a lot of people, again, from the outside, it looks like it's super easy, but we were struggling so much to get sponsors in those early days. And even after winning a few races as a pro, it's still so difficult. You don't have people just ringing up the phone saying, oh, we want to sponsor you. It's always the other way around, where you're chasing to try and get brands to support you and kind of tell them, well, look, this is where I'm aiming to be, but until you've actually done it, they don't believe it. And I kind of feel like maybe I've proved quite a lot of brands wrong, who I was trying to tell them what I was about and what I wanted to do in the early days, and maybe they might be kicking themselves now that they didn't sign a deal. So yeah.
Right, listen, one last thing I want to ask you about, because I am also a Volkswagen Campervanner. I'm loving the T6. The video you've produced with the new T6 that you've just got, it looks awesome.
Oh my God, it is absolutely amazing. So this came about by the triathlon show this year. A friend of mine was actually at the show, and he saw this company called CJL Leisure Vans were actually there, and they were advertising that they wanted to partner with an athlete. And so I got in touch straight away, because literally my dad's dream car from growing up has been like the vintage VWs. So me and my sister have always loved camper vans, and sort of the dream is always to be able to get my dad one of the vintage ones one day. But yeah, so I kind of got in touch straight away. I didn't even have a car at the time, actually. So I was like, it'd be great to just get 4 wheels, to be honest, to get about. So yeah, I contacted them, and it was quite a long process, because they'd never actually done anything like it before. So I was just working with them to see how it could work. And it wasn't until after Kona this year, we actually took the trip down to Bristol, and they were unveiling the van that they had done for us. And I had zero input into this. And honestly, I could not believe like the detail they'd gone to with kind of, they said they felt like they'd almost stalked me a little bit to get every detail to my personality. So even to the seats being kind of like my favourite colours and what my race suit is. And yeah, just loads of little details that I just couldn't actually believe they'd gone to all this effort. So me and my sister, mum and dad, are going to go down to Cornwall next week, actually, in the van, and kind of get some content filming it, how I'm going to use it for my training. I might even be braving the sea this week in my wetsuit, and just getting some footage of that. But yeah, it's really, really cool. And I think it will allow us to race a bit more in the UK, train a bit more in the UK, and just say, you know what, actually, we fancy going up to the Lake District to train. Let's just pack up the van and go. So, and if we race somewhere like Roth again, we would just drive over with all the gear, make it a road trip, stop over. So, yeah, he's allowing us to have a lot more opportunities. And I mean, me and Reece just love doing things like park runs. So we kind of would love to just go around the UK doing different park runs every weekend. So yeah, it's going to be a real sort of big opportunity for us, and a bit of a lifestyle change, hopefully. I mean, there's no doubt we'll obviously still go off to Lanzarote to train if the weather's terrible here. But it's nice to know we can actually base ourselves around the UK and do a bit more at home.
Fantastic. All right, listen, final question then. What are your race plans for next year going forwards?
Oh, so next year, my race calendar is completely up in the air. There's a lot of things actually going on within the pro triathlon kind of circuit. I don't know if you've heard about the Collins Cup before. Yeah. It's been trying to be developed for a long time.
Years now, hasn't it? Yeah.
A lot of talk of it being next year. So until that's confirmed, my season is quite up in the air, and hopefully it's going to get confirmed soon, because it looks really, really exciting actually for a lot of the pro athletes. So if that goes ahead, my season will be kind of leading more towards that. I mean, obviously next year, the ultimate goal will be Kona. So everything is leading towards that. I'll need to pick an Ironman to validate at. And at the moment, my favourite Ironman really is Ironman South Africa, which is earlier than ever next year. I think it's at the end of March. So that is likely to be my validation race. So I can get that done early, and then I could look at these Collins Cup type races put on by the PTO, which is the Pro Triathlete Organisation. So yeah, I'm kind of, at the moment, I have like an A, B and C plan for my season. There's also a chance that I may actually get to start in the elite race at London Marathon. So that could be really exciting.
Oh, wow.
And would mean I really will work on my running until then, because I don't want to get dropped in the first few Ks. So, so yeah, we'll see. I'm actually going to go and do a half marathon around December time, just to make sure I have my championship time, because did not start at London Marathon in 2016 when I had a stress fracture. And then this year I had a DNF because I went into the race with a stomach bug, and I probably broke the record for the most portaloos used in like 8 miles. So yeah, I would like to go third time lucky and have a great run there. So that's definitely sort of one of my early season goals. And then, yeah, like I said, it will all just be leading towards Kona and trying to finally get that win there. So yeah, unfortunately, I can't give you a lot more detail because I actually don't know at the moment. So yeah, I'm sure we'll be putting it out on YouTube once races are decided, just to keep everyone in the loop and all my fans knowing what I'm doing. So yeah, we'll let everyone know once we know, basically.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing those firmed up plans in the future then. But listen, Lucy, thank you so much for the time to come back on the show. Congratulations on that incredibly gritty battle to win second place at Kona. It was one of the highlights of my year, watching you battle back to do that, because I think coming back to overtake somebody when you've been overtaken at the very highest level, especially in that heat and humidity, it's like a hats off to you moment. So I look forward to seeing that sprint finish next year, maybe. Hey,
I wouldn't mind. I always love a bit of excitement in my racing and delivering the excitement to everyone watching. So yeah, hopefully.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you very much. Great chatting to you, Rob. Take care.
Awesome interview with her. Obviously, Lucy talking there about her indoor training and her sponsorship with Zwift and her love of the indoor training and how it really helps her get the best out of herself. And it's obviously definitely working for her, isn't it, with the performances we've seen from her over the last couple of years. So get on it on the indoor training, everybody, and take care of your hydration needs with our friends at Precision Hydration. All right, so before we continue, we have got a few bits and bobs of news and races coming up this weekend. But first, a shout out to our other sponsor, Thriver.co. A lot of you will have heard of me talking about how much I love this product. It is an at-home finger prick blood test. You order it from them, it gets delivered through the post in a cute little box, and from opening the box to having the whole test done takes you less than 5 minutes. It's really super simple. You do a quick finger prick at the end of your little finger, you squeeze 4 or 5 drops of blood into the little test tube that they send you, and you send it back to them, and you can completely personalize the blood test that you have to get any manner of readings on your health. So whether you're tracking, for athletes, tracking things like iron levels, testosterone, liver function, vitamin B9 and B12, vitamin D, all the stuff that's really important to take care of. Or if you're interested in your health and you're tracking things like thyroid function, diabetes, cholesterol, omega-3 and omega-6, you can decide exactly what you want in your blood test. The price varies depending on how many tests you have done. So I've been talking with a doctor in the background. We're going to have a special in a few weeks' time talking about my blood tests and some of the special different supplements you can take to keep on top of both your health and your performance. Things like vitamin B12 and vitamin D, and how important it is that us athletes supplement with that, especially during the winter time. So if you've not taken a blood test with them and you're interested, you can get £30 off your first test by using the code OxygenAddict30 over at Thriver.co. And watch out for it's not just about blood tests, it's about health in general and diet in general and how we can get the best out of ourselves as athletes, especially during the winter months. That special will be coming up in a few weeks' time. So, races we've got going on this weekend. The first one I'm excited to see is the Middle Eastern Championships at 73 Bahrain. Now, if you think back to last year, we had Christian Blumenfeld take out the win. He was about 20 seconds ahead of Gustav Iden. They had a crazy battle on the run, and I think both ran 106 something to take the win. So amazing performance from them. And Casper Storns was in third place, so they had a complete Norwegian podium there. This year, doesn't look like Gustav Iden's on the start list, but both Christian and Casper are again. Ben Knut's on the start list as well. Ali Brownlee's on the start list. Now, whether he'll race off the back of his race at the full distance race Western Australia that's just happened this past weekend, I know he's a sponsored athlete on the Bahrain endurance team, so it might be interesting to see whether he's actually there on the start line. But regardless, it was a super fast race last year. The world best got broken with 3:29 from Christian Blumenfeld. So an amazing race from him. Over on the women's side, Holly Lawrence broke 4 hours last year. She went, I think, she went 3:59.20 for her second win in a row as well, ahead of Sarah Lewis and Ellie Salthouse. This year, the pro start list for the women has got, as well as Holly Lawrence, we've got Sarah Svensk, we've got Britain's Jodie Stimpson, we've also got Lisa Norden on there. So be good racing there. I know Holly will be super keen to take her third win in the row. She's also part of the Bahrain endurance team there. So there'll be super fast racing. And I think Holly was only 3 minutes away from breaking the world best time last year. So if she's in great form, maybe she'll be going for that as well. So check that out. There's usually really good coverage on the Facebook Watch from Ironman Live. There's also going to be racing down at 70.3 New Zealand at Topar. Now, when I saw the start list for this, again, it looked like we've got Mike Phillips there. We've got Max Newman. We've got Cameron Brown on the start list. Now, he was racing Western Australia and pulled out during the run. We've also got Hayden Wild, who you'll remember just caused a sensation at racing Super League Tri-Malta when we were there. He was absolutely on fire and is a real gutsy racer and races everything from the very short distances all the way through Xterras, all the way through to 70.3. So personally, I'm super excited to see how well he does at this, because I kind of said to him in the interview after Super League Malta, have you thought about stepping up to 70.3? And he said, oh yeah, I've raced a few of those before, mate. And I didn't know that. Obviously, he was from a sort of a longer distance Xterra racing background as well. So I'm super excited to see how he goes from racing the short distances all the way through to 70.3. Over on the women's side, we've got Hannah Wells, Rebecca Clark, Laura Wood lining up as well. So that should be a great race, and it's down in a beautiful location. Other news from around the world to wrap up this week. Outlaw have announced a new half-distance race taking up at the Bowood Estate in Wiltshire. That's going to take place on Sunday, the 7th of June. Entries for that are open over at outlaw.com. And Super League Tri have announced that Ottawa is going to be one of their qualifying races, taking place on the 4th of July. So it's one of 4 Super League qualifiers confirmed now for 2020, along with the events in Bali and Ecuador and Poznan in Poland. There's another further event apparently to be announced in early 2020 that will round out their qualifiers. And then the main championship event is going to be taking place after the Olympics. All right, so that pretty much wraps up our episode today. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed that. Let us know what you think over on the Oxygen Addict Triathlon community page on Facebook. If you're not a member there, you can join up for free and talk all things triathlon with us. Thanks very much to our sponsors, Precision Hydration. Remember, you can get a free box or tube worth up to $9.99 with the code Oxygen Addict. Thriver.co, you can get £30 off your first test with the code Oxygen Addict 30. And if you're looking for triathlon coaching, or you're considering getting triathlon coaching to start the new year off, we're going to have some big deals going on for our January sale. So keep an eye out for that one. You can go over to teamoxygenaddict.com and check out our coaching packages over there. Now remember, there's a link in the show notes for all of these sponsors, so you don't have to remember them. So just go into the show notes in either iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to your show, and there'll be clickable links in there that'll take you directly to our offers. And that's it for this week's show. Thanks very much, everyone. Until next week, have a great, safe training and racing week. I'm Coach Rob Wilby, and you've been listening to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. See ya.